Well, welcome back to our video on parental involvement. Today we hope to discuss some of the issues that parents and other family members can do for their children and their students to better prepare them for their academics. The involvement of our parents is extremely important, and there are many ways that we can be involved both at home and in the classroom to make our children's education a success. We've brought together several different people, from administrators at schools to teachers as well as parents, to help share with us some ideas about ways that we can better prepare and better assist our students in their academic goals. Well, Principal Komatz, why don't we begin by starting with the most basic question, and that is, how important is a parent's role in their children's or child's success?
That's very important. The role that school plays is, that traditional role that we all think. You drop your kid off here at school, the teacher handles the educational piece, and the administrator takes care of the safety of the school, monitors the instruction. But that child is only here for approximately 6 hours a day. So the other portion of that is what continues at home with that education, with that child, with the follow-up. So it is a very integral piece that takes place in the house.
I have one child in middle school and one child in high school. Personally, it's almost important as the teacher. I really believe that learning does not stop at the school, that a parent needs to be heavily involved in their child's academic future and towards what their career goals are going to be, and being part of that is really important in my perspective.
So, Ellen, what assistance then can parents provide their children at home? There's many services in the classroom or in the school environment, but once they leave the school and go home, how can parents help them at home?
Well, it's different for elementary, middle, and high school. In elementary school, probably the biggest thing that parents can help with is reading with their children. If you continue to read and get them to love reading, they are going to be successful. And it starts in second or third grade that they start to fall behind in the cracks and they're not keeping up with the reading. So reading every single night, reading aloud, asking comprehension questions, reading back and forth, making it fun, finding things they love to read, so important. Then the next thing I'd say is math facts. Just practicing their math facts, whatever grade they're at. If they're supposed to know from 1 to 20, the multiplication tables, whatever it is that they're supposed to be studying, practice on the way to school, make flashcards, make it fun. And then when they're getting higher concepts in math, they're not worried about multiplying or dividing, they're trying to learn the concept. In regard to middle school, it's a lot different. The kids have social issues and academic issues. So still stay involved with their homework. Long Beach Unified has School Loop, which lists their grades to parents and also their homework assignments. You should be checking it every day. Your child still needs your help with their homework. And make a science fair project fun. You still need to do it with them. Even though they're in 7th or 8th grade, they're not really ready to do it on their own. They need your modeling. With social issues, you really need to look at their text messages and look at their emails. See how many times they're text messaging a day. Are they text messaging during school time? What's the content of their text messages? And there's ways you can set it up that your child can't have a phone unless the text messages come to you. That's a parental right, and it's really your job. You want to make sure that your kid is safe, that they're doing the right thing, and then they can get a good education. But if they're too involved with social networking, they're going to fall apart.
Yeah, so a routine for me, to use my children as an example, one likes to get his homework done right after school. So he comes home and he wants to get that done so he can have a little time to relax afterwards. My other child is the opposite. He wants to come home and he wants to unwind a little bit. So we usually give him an hour to unwind, do what he wants to do, and then it's time to start homework. And that's worked very well for us. I think it's important for parents to understand that not all kids are the same, that each child has their own needs or how they respond to certain aspects. But one thing that we absolutely make sure that they understand is our expectation is that their homework gets done.
As they go through middle school and into high school, they do get more independence. So I'm not on them as much about their stuff. I make sure that they can become independent and do it themselves. But by setting up a routine early, especially in middle school, when they go into high school, it seems to me my high schooler it's a lot easier for her to deal because she understands what the routine is.
So Ellen, since we're talking about communication now and technology, can you share with us, what do you recommend is the best way a parent can communicate with their child's teacher?
Elementary school, it's still, a lot of parents walk their child to school, so it could be just touching base in the morning. Make sure that you go to back to school night and open house. And I would say the best form of communication would be leaving a voice message or setting up an appointment with an elementary teacher. Middle school, different. They're on their emails a lot more, and they're on School Loop. I would probably say through emails. Same with high school. But set up appointments if you're concerned. Teachers are there for you.
Right now, I have one child is in elementary school, and I have one child that is in middle school. And the elementary side, usually what they have is they'll have like a back to school night, and that gives the parents an opportunity to go in and meet the teacher. And at that point, the teacher discusses hers or his expectations on the kids for the school year, and that starts from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade. And that I have found to be probably the most important meeting to attend, because you get to see and meet your child's teacher. You get to talk to them one-on-one about your child, and at that point, if your child were to have any special needs or any issues or problems that you'd want the teacher to know, it's a really good opportunity, like I said, to get in contact with the teacher. And in middle school, they still have a back to school night, which is really important to get to in the middle school aspect, because you get to meet all of their teachers. You're not just dealing with one, you may be dealing with 4 or 5 different teachers. So that to me is, like I said, important in its own right to get to know all the teachers. Usually they'll give you their contact information, email, and telephone number if you were to have any problems or issues that you need to discuss with them.
Are there specific times when parents should communicate with their student's teacher? Should it be a daily process, weekly process?
I don't know if there's a certain time they should be communicating. There's certainly the times of needs. Times of needs usually come out of progress reports, come out of the time that we report the grades, which in the elementary is, the trimester. In our middle school, that will be in a quarterly system. We also communicate to parents, if their son or daughter is at risk. As you know, in Long Beach we have promotion standards for the students. And so we certainly identify students that are at risk for those promotion standards and communicate to the parents. So there's certain times a year that are almost a cyclical nature of school where the school is trying to make this huge effort to communicate to the parent. But as far as the parent communicating to the school, that can happen at any time based on how they see that their son or daughter is performing.
At the back to school night, usually at the back to school night, I'll make sure that I get the teachers' email addresses and also a contact phone number. Usually they have a voicemail that you can leave and then they'll get back to you. So I make sure that I can either communicate with them via email and or I'll leave a message on the machine, and they usually respond within 24 hours, which is good. And in the case of an emergency, you do have the opportunity to go to the school and talk to the administrator themselves and get whatever situation resolved right away.
Ellen, what about concerns that parents have regarding their ability to help their students with homework at home? For example, eventually as their student gets into middle school and high school, sometimes the material becomes a little bit more challenging. to assist, or there could be a language barrier for some family members. How can you overcome that at home for parents?
It's not always the easiest thing because you want to be that full provider. I would check with the counselor at the school to see what programs are available through the school, but also there's tutoring from upper grade students in the high school to lower grade students, and there's different programs out there that assist. There's a homework helpline, so really it depends on what location your school is at, but the counselor would be the best guidance for that.
Sometimes at school, problems exist for students, whether it be a bullying issue or discipline or or just academic struggles. As a parent of a child who's encountering some of these issues, what is the best way that they can handle that at the school?
I think the best way for a parent to handle that is to sometimes, and I don't want to put it back on the parent, but there's not always a level of awareness that the parent has that the school has, and unfortunately that's just the situation sometimes exists. Oftentimes I'll get a parent who will come or contact me about a situation going on or developing at the school, and I will invariably ask them during the course of talking to them, have you talked to the teacher about it? And sometimes I'll get the answer, no, I have not talked to the teacher about it. And I'd like to use the teacher as the first line of monitoring the situation, being aware of the situation, and oftentimes when they are able to do that, the problem is able to be solved.
If a parent wants to be involved at school, what are some of the activities that a parent can participate at their child's school?
There's different ways. Most schools have a PTA, and I highly recommend you get involved with that. PTA is for every child every day, and they raise money to help the school either with field trips or special events, but it's for every child, so you do have a say.
There are at any school opportunities for parent involvement at a school. Starting on the most basic level is being able to work in a classroom as a VIP at a school, and that takes place at any school in Long Beach. If a parent has the time to volunteer their services, we certainly have a system in place where they can do that in the classroom. Here at Patrick Henry, we have other opportunities to do that where we have room parents that communicate the functions or the day-to-day things that are going on in the classroom or at the school through email. We call it email blasts. There are ways to be involved with school-wide events here, but again, that's not a Patrick Henry thing. That's at any school.
I think, like you mentioned, I think the first and foremost best way to be involved, especially in elementary school, is to try to volunteer. These days, with the school budget crunch the way it's been and the amount of students per teacher ratio, it's really important to have parents that can go in and help the teachers. In our children's school, the one that's in elementary school, they actually, at the beginning of the year, at back to school night is when the parents can sign up and say that they want to help out on a particular day of the week. So if it's one day a week, you go in and you're helping out for 2 hours. It gives you the involvement of being there with the teacher, interacting with your own child to see how they're doing, but it also helps out the school itself because, like I said, with the teacher having in our particular school district, there's 38 students to one teacher. So you can imagine trying to get things going with 38 kids. It's kind of difficult for them. So that involvement, the teacher appreciates it, the school appreciates it, and it also gives the student a sense of that their parents are involved there too. I think that helps out a lot.
As you get into middle school, they want the children to be a little bit more independent, so you don't really get the help in the classrooms, but you should definitely join the PTA and be involved that way. Then they have extracurricular activities that you should be involved in, maybe fundraisers, and especially as you get into the high school, you should join the booster clubs if your children are in athletics, or you should help out with the fundraisers that they have on weekends and also throughout the year.
I would imagine that many parents are pretty busy either with work or other commitments that they have.
If they can't volunteer directly with the school, are there some other avenues where they can dedicate some of their time with volunteering type activities?
Yes, there's certainly, if they can't necessarily volunteer in the classroom, there are certainly ways that they can volunteer outside the classroom. And I'll give you, for instance, in our kindergarten and first grade, I'm aware of teachers that send materials home for parents to work on for class, projects, packets. In some ways it's kind of clerical things that a parent can do to support the classroom. So we have working parents that get materials from their sons or daughters. They're brought home, they work on it, and they get returned, and that's for the class. As I mentioned before, we do email blasts, and we have room parents that communicate through that. They do that via the home. Certainly the phone calls that they do to parents, and that's also via the home. And then again, if they can't help support in the school, physically at the school, there's certainly fundraising opportunities that many parents involve themselves with that allow them the opportunity to stay connected to the school and supporting the school.
They still can get involved. I know that they maybe can't do a field trip, but what they can do is help with that homework, make sure that they're reading the newsletters, they're looking on the web page, they know what activities are coming up, their child's backpack is ready to go in the morning, and that they're aware of what's going on. Just having conversations with your child on what happened at school today really keeps you in the loop, and it makes the student realize that school is important.
Are there any other suggestions or comments that you would give parents or other family members in terms of what they can do to help with their kids that we've missed in terms of our questions today?
I think that the biggest message, which I really try to impress upon parents, is to really show your son or daughter that school matters. I think oftentimes what we get is we get our kindergarten or first grade parents that are very connected to the school. They're very a big part of our fundraising that goes on in the school, and I'm glad they support the school that way. They still putting the papers up on the refrigerator when the kid comes home. He's got a perfect score, but that can continue all the way through middle school. And as I tell my middle school parents, there's no reason why that paper still can't go up on the refrigerator, because it sends a very powerful message to their child that the importance of school, the importance of education. And even though parents, based on their economic backgrounds, based on their language backgrounds, that there may be some barriers there, they can still impress upon their child that education matters, that school matters, and there's a lot of ways that they can show that support in the home.
Thank you for being with us today. As you can see, there are many ways that parents and family members can participate with their students and achieve academic success. From the environment you set up at home, from assisting with homework, to volunteering both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Avenues exist for our families to share in our children's success, academically, socially, and if any problems arise, it's always a good opportunity for you as parents to share your concerns with your local schools and see if there's other programs that are available to help achieve their success in the classroom.